Welcome to another episode of In the Line of Wire with me, Jahara. I have with me today Laila Chirayat Jana. I got that right. And she is the founder and CEO of an organization called Samasource. And she's also a visiting scholar at Stanford University. Hi, Laila. Good to have you here.
Hi, Jahan. Thanks for having me.
Now tell me, the first thing we need to know is, what is Samasource? And why did you start it? When did you start it?
Sure, happy to tell you. Samasource is a social business based in San Francisco, California.
Okay, stop right there. When you say it's a social business, what do you mean? Let's define that.
That's a great question. I think the founder of this term is Muhammad Yunus, the Nobel Prize winner from Bangladesh who founded Grameen Bank.
Right.
A social business is a business that has as its main motive not making lots of profit, but making social impact.
Okay.
So it's
but it does make money. It is a business.
It is a business that invests any money above and beyond the cost of running the business back into the business itself rather than into shareholder dividends.
Okay. All right. Because there's always a misunderstanding that if you're a social enterprise, you should not be making any money at all. But then how do you sustain yourself? So that's why I asked you to clarify what a social business was.
I think it's a really exciting new trend in the philanthropic world. People are realizing that a lot of nonprofits have not been built in a sustainable manner.
Right.
They're built to absorb grant funds and then run out and then depend on more philanthropic support.
And that's why some of them don't go beyond just being pilot projects.
Absolutely, and that's why some of them have a very limited lifespan.
Okay, so now let's get back to Samasource. It's a social enterprise.
Sure, so it's a social enterprise or social business based in San Francisco.
Okay.
Our mission is to promote job creation among skilled people who are economically marginalized.
Okay.
So what that means practically is that we identify small, promising business process outsourcing and technology companies, generally in low-income countries.
Okay.
And we connect
so we
them.
count. Pakistan is a low-income
counts,
country.
right?
Okay. Although we've got some very rich people living here, but that doesn't matter.
Right.
They're a very small number.
And eventually we'll move our services to include people from marginalized communities, even in wealthier countries.
Okay.
Poor people exist everywhere,
yeah, that's
right?
True. That's true.
But right now we work with small technology companies in low-income countries, and primarily our operations now are in Kenya, rural India, and Nepal.
Okay.
And we connect these firms to U.S. clients.
Okay.
What we realize is that there's been a lot of emphasis on access to capital and finance for entrepreneurs, and not a lot of emphasis on what these entrepreneurs do once they've launched their businesses and need to sell products.
And market access is a major problem for most of them.
Absolutely. Being located in a low-income country means that you're really sort of marginalized from global markets.
Right. Okay. So that's what your organization does.
Right.
So how successful have you been in all these other countries? I know Pakistan is a new place that you're exploring now, but in Nepal, in Kenya, as well as in rural India, how successful have you been? Have you found that what you went in with, the conception that you had of being able to bring business to them, has it worked?
That's a great question. We were really nervous about this. I quit my job in December of 2007. I was a management consultant to do this full time.
Right.
And then we launched our pilot after doing a feasibility study in Kenya. We launched our pilot in July of 2008.
Okay.
And in the first 4 months or so of brokering contracts on behalf of these firms, we generated around $85,000 in business.
Okay.
And that was really
terrific.
with an all-volunteer sales team and myself, and I haven't really paid myself a salary since we started.
Well, that happens with entrepreneurs. First couple of years, forget that you need a salary. You should have some money just to live and eat.
Rice and beans is the diet choice for entrepreneurs.
Okay, so but you were able to get business worth about $85,000 for them.
Right, and that's just in our initial couple of months, and with very, very limited access to experienced salespeople or web-based advertising. So pretty much through word of mouth and through me kind of speaking at conferences and getting people excited about the idea.
Okay.
And our biggest.
Why would people be excited about this idea in the U.S. market? Because that's where you're probably sourcing the business from, right?
Right. That's where we're finding most of our clients. Outsourcing has a really bad rap in the U.S.
Yeah, that's why I wondered.
It's a $160 billion industry worldwide. It's generated 7 billionaires. All of them are Indian, Chinese, and American men.
Right.
And so there's a perception that this business is not really benefiting the average Joe in America.
Right.
What we found is by calling it something different, by calling it socially responsible outsourcing, which is a social label that we're trying to develop. So people know social labels like fair trade for coffee. There's really no label like that for services. We think that by branding it this way and by emphasizing that outsourcing to small firms in very poor regions can be tremendously impactful. That we can kind of change people's perceptions of outsourcing. And we find that it's worked. Our biggest client to date is actually a nonprofit based in Palo Alto, and nonprofits are typically not the first organizations to outsource.
Okay, but they have. So it's working.
I hope so.
Okay, now about Pakistan, you've just arrived here and you think that this is a great place to try your model for Samasource. What's your experience been? You've met quite a few people in the last few days, and I think you've spoken to people from the academic sector as well as industry. What do you think? You think this is going to be a model that will work here?
I hope so. I think, well, Pakistan is intriguing for a couple of reasons. The first is, much like Kenya, there's a skilled labor surplus. You have hundreds of thousands of graduates coming out of universities who speak good English, who have business acumen, are good at math and science, and not enough jobs to accommodate all of this skilled labor. And especially now with the global situation, it's very hard for them to get visas to leave. Which is typically a great market to enter if you are an outsourcing company. We've seen the same thing in Kenya. The flip side of that is that there's a high level of perceived risk of outsourcing to Pakistan. So large companies are very reluctant to migrate enormous parts of their business to a country like this. Which means that I think there could be a real opportunity for smaller players who handle piecemeal projects that are maybe can accommodate a little bit more risk, or at least the clients for those projects have more appetite for risk than a large corporate.
Or maybe because they're not mission critical jobs that, you know, if they should fail, which they don't, because we've seen the example of freelancers who've been working on Rent-A-Coder and Odesk from Pakistan, and deadlines have been met, you know, despite the problems with power and connectivity issues in the past. You know, they've got a good reputation as freelancers.
And even larger scale operations, I had a conversation yesterday with the Resource Group, TRG, which is an excellent company. I know some of their founders in the US, and their local operations team told me they have 1,100 people working in Pakistan, and a large number of women. And even during some of the, I think maybe during an earthquake, or they mentioned that there was some kind of instability in the last year or so that they've been in operation, and they didn't have a single client interruption, and they've had nothing but positive feedback for clients.
This has been true for several companies in Islamabad as well, when there was a bomb blast, that you know, their business continuity plans are so good because they realize this is a high-risk country, and their clients haven't even known when things like that have happened because the work hasn't been interrupted. So I think we've got a good reputation for that. And as far as you know, single freelancers or whether they're small companies, they tend to work out of small offices which may be running out of their homes or places close to home. And so, you know, they're not impacted as much. So you think this is going to work here?
I'm very optimistic.
Okay. So you're going to be meeting young companies or smaller companies, medium-sized companies in Karachi and Lahore. And what are you going to tell them? Consider this a practice run.
I'm a little bit nervous about making promises that we may not be able to keep. I'm going to tell them a couple of things. One is that I'm very confident that we'll be able to, through this new concept, socially responsible outsourcing, convince people that bringing jobs to a place like Pakistan can have a really stabilizing influence. And I think, you know, there's no better way to address political instability than giving people jobs, right? So that's the first thing that I'll tell them, is that I think there will be a growing appetite for this kind of thing in the US. And I think the second is really that there's, with the internet completely globalized and the bandwidth pretty good here. There's so much that Pakistani firms and individuals can learn by going online and following best practices. So there's no natural limit on what an individual or a small company could do here. I've talked to some really innovative firms since arriving that are building products that would be considered innovative in Silicon Valley. And what that shows is that they're going online and reading the same tutorials and learning, from the same coders that
Actually,
people are.
some of them are selling these products in the US already.
Oh, right.
So they're building applications for the iPhone, and they're building applications or web applications that are running online, and the customers are all in North America. None of them are here. So, just because it's developed here doesn't mean that the business is from here.
Right.
So, yeah, we've got some great companies here, and people are very surprised to hear that. We've got a company that has a product running on the New York Stock Exchange. We've got companies that are developing for Facebook, and you yourself told me that Odesk is very impressed with the number of Pakistanis that are using that platform.
Yeah. There are 6,000 Pakistani providers, and I'm in touch with the Odesk management team in Silicon Valley, and when I told them I was coming out here, I got a list of people I should meet.
Oh.
And one of them I mentioned this morning
Yes.
is a young woman from Islamabad who's a mother of two, and needed to quit her teaching job when she realized it wouldn't be sustainable and compatible with her life as a mother.
Okay.
So she started looking for freelance work and discovered Odesk after some Googling.
Okay.
And since then, she's been able to generate a monthly income of about $500 a month.
And she's just begun, so
just started,
hopefully
right.
That's just going to increase.
Absolutely, and that for a place like Pakistan is a pretty good salary.
Yes, so. It is. She probably wasn't earning that much as a teacher.
No. She told me she was earning about $120 a month. So it's a way for women to get empowered and to still be able to work at home. And it's also a means of accessing global markets for people who wouldn't be able to travel outside of Pakistan and find jobs in the US or Europe.
And the current visa situation is pretty bad, so so you can stay at home and you can do a lot of work that is generated in the US.
That's right.
Terrific. Is there anything else that you want to tell us about what you're doing at Samasource, or are there any other initiatives that you have started or are thinking of starting that we could possibly work with you on?
Sure. So there are a couple of things. One thing I guess I mentioned that I spoke to this young woman earlier this morning, and we spoke earlier too about your women's virtual network. If you don't mind if I spill the beans on camera here. But I think there's a really interesting opportunity for us to pool together a group of female freelancers in Pakistan and have them vetted locally by some kind of an institution, and also maybe have them take a few tests on a website like Odesk.
Right.
And for us to do marketing specifically for this group of women, I think it's a tremendous story.
Terrific.
People are excited in the US about giving work to stay-at-home moms. I think they'd be even more excited about giving work to stay-at-home moms in a place like this.
Yes, we've got some very bright women and who've topped at university and then not gone out and got jobs, or some of them have, and then because they have young children or responsibilities in the home or in the communities, they just cannot take on full-time careers. So this would be just an amazing opportunity for them.
Right.
Okay.
And a second initiative, well, a couple of other initiatives. The second, we discussed a Facebook developer garage. So one of the things that Samasource does is it assists in attaining training for smaller firms and freelancers, training that these organizations and people might not otherwise be able to access.
Right.
So we've talked to Facebook, and we've confirmed that there are some engineers on the Facebook team who might be interested in doing a training session via webcam. Samasource has done Facebook developer garages, which is just really code for how to build a Facebook widget in several hours.
Right.
We've done those in 3 different locations in Africa, in Kenya, Uganda, and Ghana last year. So it's looking likely that we'll be able to do that in Pakistan.
Great, and we can involve CIO in that.
I hope so.
CIO Pakistan is always ready to jump on the bandwagon on these initiatives.
Great.
It's always great because they've been working with other organizations here like Google and running training for local engineers who are very good. But if they get one-to-one access to organizations like Facebook, then they'll be able to develop applications much more quickly according to the guidelines set by these organizations. So that I'm really excited about that one as well. So we must organize that next month as soon as we can.
It's on the docket for mid-March, right?
Okay, terrific. Well, these are just the first few things that we'll be doing together, but I'm glad that you decided to visit Pakistan, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your trip. And hopefully from here, we can only go forward and do other things together.
Thank you, Jahan. I'm so happy to be here.
Great to have had you here, Laila.
Thanks.
Thank you, Laila. It was great having you here.
Thank you, Jahan. It was my pleasure.
I was in conversation with Laila Chirayat Jana, and she's here from San Francisco, and she's got an initiative which you heard about, which is Samasource.com. Please visit the site, find out what she's doing. There's a blog as well. Visit that and find out. She's taken a lot of videos with her flip video, much like mine, except hers is in pink. And she has put that up there as well, of her visit, of her meetings with people within the industry and people at educational institutions. We will have Laila back because I'm sure since this is her first trip to Pakistan, she will come back again, and we'll be working with her, and we will be talking to her again at the CIO Pakistan Web Studio in the Line of Wire. This is Jahara signing off.